be TTRPG related. So how's everybody doing?
All right.
All right. We are just going crazy with the talk here. I guess we will just jump right into the fact that for those of you that were fortunate enough to watch our charity stream last week, we came up with a new beverage based on that. For those of you that have not, we will pause this. We will wait for you right now to go and watch that stream. Go ahead, watch it. We're not waiting for them to watch it.
It's only like a couple hours, you know.
It's like 3.5 hours. We'll wait.
To be fair, the drink conversation came up about, 45 minutes into the stream? Like as soon as
the moment you said the goblin noggin, I was like, cocktail. And some Brooke, I think you were also like, it's a drink.
It's a drink, for sure.
Yeah. So we have a couple of competing recipes. Rook, the mixologist on staff, has concocted a beverage, as has Trip. Who wants to Trip? Did you want to try one of yours? Let us know how it is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you say I concocted a recipe, I mean 30 minutes before we came in for tech, I was like, I'm feeling FOMO. I got to come up with a drink. And there's some bullshit at the last minute. Met a professional soccer player at the Bevmo while I was trying to buy alcohol. And, here we are. So I have 3 options. One of them is undeniably the worst option. And so I'm going to leave it for my last one. We're going to start with the gin. It's in a goblet so it's fancy. This is matcha, lemonade, a little bit of honey, a little bit of simple syrup, and gin and Tanqueray. So,
salud. Goblinood.
Oh, I kind of like that. I think I could do with like a little bit more lemon, but I don't hate it.
Okay, Rook, would you like to tell us about yours?
Oh.
I thought you were going to tell us about mine.
No.
What is there to tell? What is there to tell?
What can you say about
I have the goblin noggin. The recipe, if you'd like the recipe, it is in our Discord channel, which you can find a link to in the panels down below. And my goblin noggin, in my world, the goblins own a lot of beachfront property. There's a lot of touristy stuff going on in Goblin Land. And mine is vodka, peach schnapps, pineapple juice, Baja Blast, and a little squirt of lime juice.
See, yours is undeniably, it's going to be better than mine.
Well, to be fair, I'm neither a fan of grapefruit juice nor peach schnapps, so probably not going to be my favorite drink. But I did add a little bit of white oak smoke to it, so we can,
I'm sure that would complement it perfectly.
It may drown out some of the things I hate.
No more of the skull of your cup while you're smoking it. I want to see the whole noggin.
Here's our noggin.
Full noggin.
Blow some of the smoke out of it, and cheers to Goblin Noggin, to happy hour, to everybody out there.
I think that maybe my gin one is like the goblet nugget.
The goblet nugget.
This one was Grand Centurion tequila, sponsored by the Mexican national football team that are playing in San Jose tonight and tomorrow, I guess. So one of them is just in the Bevmo.
We are accepting sponsorships. So if you're out there listening, if you know somebody with this tequila brand.
I mean, I met the people. I got to just go back there and be like,
yeah, run down real quick. Bring your glass.
The guy said he would try it. He would try this mix because it's also matcha and lemonade and tequila. I like this one better than the gin, I think.
Yeah, tequila.
That's because it's tequila and not gin.
Listen, I usually like gin. But
plus with the citrus, like I feel like tequila and citrus is always gonna land.
So this is gonna bring me to the distinctly worst option that no one should try. fucking lime green buzzball.
What?
That looks like
Buzzballs.
something you should throw at the enemy.
Looks like a water balloon for real.
Yeah, it does.
It does, and it is. Buzzballs are awful. No one should try them. I'm gonna drink one tonight. Because look how fucking lime green this is. If
I
anything
mean,
is,
Very green.
What even
this
I
is
mean-
the gobby noggy.
I mean,
If,
it does resemble a goblin noggin for whatever that's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom of the barrel. It's gonna be awful. I've never had a good experience with a buzzball.
So if you are out there, if you are listening, if you are watching this live, please tell all your friends, come in here and check out how much this stream is going to go downhill over the course of the next 50 minutes after goblin noggins and
Mm-hmm.
buzzball balloons.
Well, Chuck, tell me, was it the worst drink you've ever had?
No, you have cleared that bar. It was not the absolute worst drink
That's what
I've
I
ever
like to
had.
hear.
We are not going to relive that on the stream tonight. But if you really want to know, join in the Discord. Ask. Maybe I'll post about it over there. So feel free, hit that button to join the Discord. Enjoy your goblin noggin.
Oh my.
We also do have one other tradition here on the Hit Points Not Required Happy Hour.
Mm-hmm.
Someone always drinks on the house. Does anyone know who might be drinking on the house this week? Did you watch? Again, we'll pause.
Mhm.
We'll wait on this stream while you go and watch our stream from
Yeah.
last Monday.
Yeah, quick 3-hour stream, no problem. Go check it out.
Just put it on a 1.25 speed. You'll be done in no time.
No problem.
But for those of you that have, you will understand. Motor broom enthusiasts drink on the house.
Yes.
You are a motor broom enthusiast. Come on over, get your free goblin noggin.
Indeed.
Oh. So what else is going on in our lives? It's been a week. Tell me,
Mhm.
I'm interested. What's going on? Who's got a good story that doesn't involve Mexican gold medal winning soccer players pitching tequila at their local alcohol
It would be a lot
store?
more exciting if I knew who he was, but my roommate did. My roommate was very excited, and I do have this signed bottle of tequila that my roommate Nikunj is now becoming the proud owner of.
Did you open it to make the tequila drink
Yes,
that
I
you
did.
made?
I
So
did.
it's a signed empty bottle is what it's going to be eventually. It's not going to
Mostly
be a
full for
signed
now.
unopened bottle.
No, man, I got it for the use of it.
Mm-hmm.
I regret to say
times.
that this buzzball is not as awful as I remember it being.
I think that's the tequila talking. It talks quickly.
Mm,
Oh my.
I hope it
So-
sings well.
Now that we've goblin noggined ourselves, did anybody create the Misfits of Monsters biker cut for us yet? No, not yet.
Not yet.
On the list
I mean-
of to-dos still, I suppose.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There will definitely be biker jackets in our future at some point. You know, we just all have to figure out what con we're attending together, and then, you know,
Yeah. So
make
I
it
was gonna
something
say,
going.
roll into a con wearing a matching.
All right,
Be
Gen
so
Con, Big Bad Con. I'm going to both.
Yeah, no. We have
The
something
mediocre response.
else. We already have something else on the books for the weekend of Gen Con. So Big Bad is a possibility, but Gen Con is kind of out for us as a group.
How dare
Dragon
you.
Con is the con though. So you know, if we can, if y'all can make it to Atlanta over Labor Day weekend, I can add a 18th costume to my list and put together a biker outfit with broom, with motor broom complete. We can make this happen.
I'll have to talk to Owen. It's possible.
Oh, all right. Well,
We're both unemployed.
so if anybody out there is looking to hire, join our Discord where you can communicate with Trip and Owen.
We're theoretically really good at words and stuff. You couldn't tell from how I use them, but
Way to sell it.
And if you need
Trip's
anyone,
like, I write way more proficiently than I speak, by the way.
I promise.
For all you employers out there seeking help. Oh, my.
for all of the myriad people trying to hire writers.
well,
That are watching the stream right now.
Yeah,
or,
I'm sure there's a ton of those.
or just hear me out. For people that are out there looking for you to drink tequila on a live stream, you seem to be really that's right up your alley. You could probably do that,
God, I could
I
do
mean,
that.
there might be a market for that, but I
have questions.
I respect those who are in that market, and I just don't know if I have the self-confidence for that.
Okay.
I do.
You don't have the liver for it anymore.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
Sure. My liver's fine, but with my kidney, I don't think I should play it fast and loose.
Hey, my liver has aged way more than that smoked drink of yours did.
I mean, the white oak adds a little something to it. It cuts into the grapefruit juice just a tad, but it's still no tequila. I'm there with you on the tequila.
And I, of course, am the spoil sport who's not drinking a goblin noggin at all.
That is fine. And
Just
you
whiskey and
allow
Coke.
it.
We need one intelligent person in the bunch. I mean,
Indeed.
Okay, so is this more or less off the rails than usual? I say usual as if this has been on many rails.
Well,
This
usually,
is pretty typical.
usually we get right around here, and Chuck's like, so anyway, the episode for the day is about this. So why don't we hit that?
okay, well, fine. That's a nice, smooth segue. The smoothest we have ever had on this program here. But yeah, we do occasionally finish talking about alcohol, mowing lawns, soccer players that we ran into, all of the wonderful things that are going on in our life. And we talk about the things that we really, really love, like TTRPGs. And for those of you that have been paying attention to the internet this week, Wizards of the Coast has started dropping little videos with hints and nuggets and what to expect in the 2024 completely redesigned top to bottom player's handbook. Have you all been watching those videos?
Some, yeah. Reading some articles, watching some videos.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that they have released and some of the stuff that they're hinting at, some of the stuff they are outright saying, which has been covered ad nauseum by people all over the internet. But what I don't hear anybody talking about is what we really care about, and that's how does this affect our role play? Does it affect the role play? Does it make things easier? Does it put up barriers? Does it do any of that? And I'll put the first thing out there. The first thing they released, the first thing they talked about, your basic character generation before you have to go anywhere, you need to select a background at some point. And they've changed the way backgrounds are working, right? And before we would select a race or a species as it'll be going forward. And along with that, way back in the day when I was a young TTRPG player, we selected a race, and that race came with +2 here, +1 here, go on your way. A few years back, Tasha's was released, and they said, forget about that. Put your +2, +1 anywhere you want, or if you want, put a +1, +1, +1. It don't matter. And there was a lot of uproar around that at that particular time. And now they've taken another step sort of halfway in between that is what it seems, right? We're going to have a background, and we're going to have three attributes associated with that particular background. And you get a choice. You can put a +2 in any one of them. You can put a +1 in any one of them, or you can put a +1 in all 3 of them. But if you want to have, strength, con, and intelligence, you will have to use this particular background to put stuff in that one. What do y'all feel about that forced path for some sort of background?
It's interesting how it's kind of splitting the difference where it's a little more flexible than the 2014 Player's Handbook rules, but less flexible than the Tasha's modification. So it's kind of interesting that it's like hitting a middle point there. I'm not totally sure what the rationale behind that was. I personally like the Tasha's flexibility. I think it makes it easier to build unconventional characters and have that supported by the mechanics of the character. But I mean, I'm not against it, but I also feel like I don't totally know why it was necessary. I don't know. That's my hot take. That's my initial reaction.
I think it's bullshit, and let me tell you.
That sounds right. Go ahead.
Continue.
Testify.
So we had races, species, and we had the attributes tied to those. And we took all of that away because we felt like that was a bad idea and a limiting factor for characters. And then we released Mordenkainen's, I don't know, multiverse of many fucking creatures or whatever the fuck that book is called. That's probably up there on
my favorite
the thing.
A24 movie.
Yeah. We released that book totally on the basis that you can put your 2 and your 1 or your 1 anywhere you fucking want. Okay? So then we transitioned to the new rule set, and we tie a starting feat to a background already. And then we add attributes to that as well. And I'm not down for it. I don't want to have to be a fucking soldier just to get a +2 to something, to strength or whatever.
Yeah,
that
I think
also mixes with whatever starting feat I happen to want. Like, I think it's horseshit. Even though there's some customizable options, it's just generally more restricting than needs to be. There was no reason to really do it, in my own humble opinion.
Yeah, I think when we talk about roleplay in particular, the fact that backgrounds are so roleplay relevant, like their backgrounds are so much like this is a story about who your character was before they were an adventure. And obviously you can, flavor it in a million different ways. But like you said, like I don't want to have to be a soldier to have to get this. Like taking a soldier background says so much about your character as a person and their experience and that sort of thing. And, even going back to the earlier version where it was tied to character race, like just because you're an elf, that doesn't actually say that much about who your character is. So now having it tied to something that almost dictates roleplay to some extent is weird.
I don't know if this is going to be exactly what you would expect from someone who can't make a goddamn decision or not. But yeah, no, when I'm choosing a background, I'm like, this is a story all about how my life got turned upside down. I'd like to take a minute and sit right there. Anyway, yeah, my background is the Prince of Bel-Air. But what was oh my god.
What were we talking about?
You were talking about having difficulties making decisions on background.
The background. Hi. So the background. I feel like I am of two minds here. Obviously, I'm of at least 2.5 at all times. But of how this could be a cool launching point for people who are like, I kind of have. Thank you. A dice in the mirror. Yeah, important detail.
I'm so sorry. I just derailed your train of thought.
It's okay. It does it itself. So it could be a good launching point for people who are like, I've got an idea for where I might want to go or what I might want to be coming from, and I don't know how to build a character from there. So it could be neat for the hypothetical me to be like, it'd be dope to be a soldier. I wonder how that might affect my character build, and to like take inspiration from that build. But I'd almost rather it be like a guideline and not like a rule, to be like, hey, here's a background you could choose, and here are some suggested attributes. And feel free to be like, nah, I want to be a soldier who wanted to be a poet, and like I'm putting all 3 of these into charisma or whatever. You can do that, but
and I feel like how backgrounds have suit what you're saying, like where it's usually like, you know, maybe a skill proficiency or 2, some like tool proficiencies, and some sort of role play kind of feature, like, you know, Shelter of the Faithful for an acolyte or something like that, where it doesn't dictate anything you have to do. It's sort of like there's smaller things that you can build on if you want to, but they're not as significant as like your major ability scores.
I mean, I kind of like the idea that background is what drives your, you know, ability. I feel like background driving who you are makes the most like intuitive sense to me, for rather than you know, race or class. Maybe class could still do it, but like where you come from, what you've experienced in the biopsychosocial realm of NPC or of RPG character development. But
that's true, but then it gets so boxed in when you're looking at how Wizards of the Coast decided to categorize their backgrounds, as opposed to being able to just customize that yourself.
Yeah, I think that it could be a useful tool for people who are especially not as confident in making decisions, or are looking to get some structure in building on the seed of an idea that they've had. But I wouldn't want to be locked into that. I would want to have the option to throw those out and be like, no, I know who I want to be.
If character creation is a barrier to entry for some people, or players that are very new to TTRPGs in general, limiting options and saying, here is the step 1, step 2, step 3, here's your character, it's done. All of that is great, and that's what 5th edition originally was designed for in 2014, right? Back in the day, was introducing a new generation or category of people, all the, you know, just introducing D&D to the general populace instead of the cloister of gamers that used to play it. And so for that end, it probably works. But as we all know, if they allow us as storytellers to customize a background to meet our own needs and create our own character, they also allow the other half of the world that wants to customize, and every character has elven accuracy and sharpshooter and is a samurai, to roll 37 d20s to crit 12 times with 1 attack, or whatever that is. That same customization rule applies to them, where we will also see those people saying the most efficient background that you can possibly squeeze out of customizing your options, custom lineage, is this. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's too much tied to one thing, and not enough thinking or critical thinking on who your character actually is, where they came from, where they are now, and how did they fuck up, to use your words, Chuck.
Yeah, well, that's my favorite question. But I agree with your point, the point that the both of you made, that this system eliminates barriers to entry, right? Make it easy for the gen pop, for the new people coming in. Grab this, grab that. Okay, almost slightly more difficult than a pre-gen character, but not much. It's your own, make your own custom thing. Overall, I will say I was opposite of Violet. I mean, I don't want to say against, but I wasn't really in favor of let's put our +2, +1 anywhere. Because yes, say you want a dwarf rogue and you want to be able to be a better dwarf rogue, you need to put the +2 in Dex or something like that. But I think while you can do that and it makes it more makes it easier to be optimized by doing that, I think you take away from the ability to tell the struggles and the trials of this character who is not statistically optimized doing the thing, is going against the grain of their society or whatever to make that happen. And there's an interesting story there. In addition, I think just like now, there is the ability to say, hey, Dungeon Master, I'd like to do this because it fits in with my story, but I want to move this here and move that there. Can I play, in terms of the, a little easier to reference, in terms of the pre-Tasha's dwarf, can I, instead of putting my +2 there, can I put it in Dex? And your DM can say, sure, yeah, go ahead and do that. It makes great story. I understand why you're doing it. Go ahead and do it. And you go ahead and play. And if you can't have that conversation with your DM, and your DM isn't willing to have that conversation with you, then as a role player, you may be at the wrong table. And those are things that you need to look at and analyze. But
no, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, like, I like what you're saying. And I was going to say, I mean, the answer to that might be a series of codified backup rules, like the way that they do have, like, alternative rules. Because I think that, like, especially for a new DM, it might be intimidating to be like, hi, yes, I see the rules are this, and I would like to change them. Which is totally, like, I love doing that. I love just, like, being like, hey, can I just, like, tweak this? I don't think it'll make me OP. I think it'll, like, fit me better. Mm-hmm. But for someone who's like, I don't know what the balancing is really well enough, and I'm not comfortable enough with the rules to break them, to have, like, a alternate choice. Like, here's how you can do character building. Here's another way you could, like, substitute in, like, because there are some alternate rules that are in character building. So
yeah, I believe that they are supposed to be introducing customized background options in the Dungeon Master's Guide when that comes out. So they'll probably have some sort of rules to help, especially a newbie DM, with all of the nonsense that we as role players bring to DMs,
I bring so much bullshit to the table. But I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable ever. So that's why I say this.
Fair. Any other thoughts on backgrounds and how they might affect stuff going forward?
I think we've talked about that particular topic plenty. Did they talk about how they're going to generate stats at all? In any have you seen any of that? They haven't talked about it or mentioned that was changing.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that, but I haven't seen any notes of it of them proposing any changes to it. There was nothing in the play tests or whatever about going away from their current 3 models, recommended models of stat generation. So it's probably going to be the same, and they're probably going to move on with that. Did anybody have a particular class that they liked or didn't like in the stuff that they've heard about?
I was just going to say that, not to be a Pathfinder 2e bitch, but the idea of having backgrounds that are like, yeah, put 1 ability score increase in this and then choose your other one is maybe, I don't know, kind of also cool. But continue.
No, that's a valid way. That maybe,
but we also love other things.
Sure. I mean, there are a number of great systems out there. This is the hot button topic right now.
So many good systems. Check out some indie games, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will say that the biggest thing I've heard going around is talk about Paladins. Mm-hmm. For those of you just tuning in, for those of you who are not familiar, the new method going forward is going to limit Paladins' smite capabilities is changing it from an ability to a spell that has a casting time of 1 bonus action. So you will only be able to do it on your turn and only be able to do it for a single attack.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is getting left out is talk about all of the other things that they're talking about with the Paladin. I don't hear anybody talking about, they're improving the Fine Steed spell. They're improving spell casting to start earlier. They're improving channel divinities so that you have more. And I think it's interesting from a role play perspective that they are increasing the ability to do things to make it actually lean more into I'm a holy warrior, as opposed to what I see being played for the most part with Paladins based on the 2014, which is I'm a fighter that smites. And like I said, I think that the role play aspect and leaning into that and trying to encourage that identity of the class is interesting. Thoughts?
I think it's bullshit. I'm just
soft response.
Just get a little sign that you hold up that just says bullshit.
This happy hour, Rook thinks everything is bullshit.
No, I don't think that tuning down or toning down smite is necessarily a bad thing. What I will say is I don't necessarily agree with everything you just said about a paladin being more identified as a holy warrior, and would like to see the ability to less define them as just that one thing. And so while I do think it's generally good that we are not taking 37 attacks in an opportunity round, we are eliminating Nova rounds, if you will, from the Paladin's toolkit. I don't think that that's a bad thing in the slightest, because it encourages more use of the other tools in the Paladin belt. But I also don't want to have to define them as I am the hand of this god. Just like I would like to maybe be a rogue that feels the same way. No, I'm the hand of this god, right?
Well, I think that's a
warrior. It's what I want to see.
Sure. I mean, I think that's a specific interpretation of holy warrior, that you are the hand of that god. I think in broad terms, we're talking that's what defines them versus a fighter or a cleric or something else.
Well, that's kind of why I stayed away from paladins for so long, because I was like, they are lawful good worshippers of a deity. And then when I was like, I can be a shitty little gremlin who's like, I will protect this natural sanctuary in the woods, and if anyone tries to like tap for oil in my woods, I'll fuck them up divinely. But my divinity is not through a god, it is through the power of my oath. And so when I was like, I can move away from worshiping a god, I can do this without God being at the
is shitty little gremlin one of the new background options?
I hope so.
Because if it is, I take back the bullshit comment. I love backgrounds.
Shitty little gremlin, the ability score increases, changes on the day. Every day you roll, which ability scores increase. Actually, I would do that in a heartbeat, honestly.
I agree though about really liking an unconventional paladin, just because I feel like paladins maybe more than any other class, although I'm saying that right now without having thought that much about it, so asterisk, I might change my mind later, but paladins, it feels so loaded, like the concept of a paladin. Like, it feels like it implies some kind of alignment, it implies like a belief system, it implies so much, and it can make it hard or at least intimidating to play that class because you feel obligated in a way to do certain things. So I agree. I like when people break away from that. I was actually disappointed to see that they didn't fold Oath of the Crown into the new player's handbook subclasses, because I had hoped they would do that to have a clearer option for an alternate type of, because I love Oath of the Crown, and I've seen people play it as just like, they work for the city or something like that, and they're like devoted to the place that they're from, and just taking the oath the interpretation of an oath in a lot of different ways, I think is interesting. So I get like the intention as like Wizards of the Coast who make D&D to want to be like, well, this is what a paladin is, so we're going to make it more paladin-y, but personally, yeah, I don't love it. But as far as the smiting, I do agree that like we don't need that level of OP, especially with all the stuff they're getting on top of it, and with the new weapon mastery stuff that Paladins are going to be using. I think if they still had an old style smite on top of all that new stuff, they'd be so overpowered. Like I think it balances by taking that away a little bit.
I'll say that my interpretation of holy warrior is not necessarily, oh, I'm a god and I'm hand of God, but they are devoted to something. They have an oath to something. They have a purpose, and it doesn't have to be a lawful purpose. It doesn't alignments. We'll go into that some other point. We ain't got time for all that shit.
That's a whole other conversation.
My alignment is also a shitty little gremlin.
I can tell you this
gremlin,
right
my
now,
alignment.
just from this conversation. Next Monday's game, if I am playing in that game, I will be combining Trip and Violet's ideas, and I will be a shitty little gremlin that works for the city, and I am going to be a trash collector of the Crown Paladin.
A city little gremlin.
I am going to be an Oath of the Crown Paladin garbage
shitty
man.
Little city gremlin.
Yes.
That's also a vegan. Oh, wait, that's a whole other thing. You bring up an interesting other point there, Violet, that they didn't republish, they're not republishing Oath of the Crown as a subclass. But they are saying things are going to be compatible. You really like something that we haven't published it, just use your old thing.
You can still play Oath of the Crown.
Bring it over and play it. I want to know how.
I think to me it just would have felt more like an acknowledgement and maybe validation to some extent of that idea of playing a non-traditional kind of paladin that isn't necessarily divine in a traditional sense. So it would have been nice to see an acknowledgement of that, but whatever, it's fine. Whatever, do what you want.
Maybe a lot of that can be ameliorated with, whatever your oath is, because it's like divinity can take the form of reverence.
How you interpret things,
spiritual on this.
Bitch. You can flavor that.
But it's a paladin, so
you can flavor that a million different ways as long as it does not involve grapefruit juice. I'm fine. But what I really want to ask about and think about is what we were talking about just a second ago. That Oath of the Crown. You can still play it. You play your old subclass. You play your old stuff. You bring that to the new game, but the new rules are in effect. You just bring the old stuff that levels and gives you stuff and different things at different times and in different ways. And how the fuck is any of that going to work?
It's going to be messy trying to do that.
It's not. It's just not going to work. Did you have an opinion on that, Trip? Or are you like, hey, here's how it's going to work?
Trip has something to say.
Right?
I had a burst of lightning, and I'm like, I can consider Oath of the Ancients Paladin, the Lorax as Oath of the Ancients Paladin.
That's what it is.
I need this. I need this in my life. I speak for the trees, and if you fuck up my trees, I'll fuck you up. I'm sorry. Are we supposed to be controlling our language on this?
No. Not at all. Especially not with the alcohol flowing the way that it is. But yeah, no. I
wish I could blame it on the tequila.
I don't know how that. There's so many things that are going to be real weird when you try to incorporate old rules and new rules.
Right. I'm willing to put this out there right now. I have $1,000. I will take $1,000 out of my personal bank account and give it to whatever charity Wizards of the Coast wants to name, wants to play for, wants to do for. If Jeremy Crawford, if someone will come on our stream, will come on.
Jeremy Crawford,
I'm laying this out there right now. $1,000 out of my pocket, American cash, to whatever charity you name. You come on, you run a one-shot with the new rules. Some of us, half of us, bring old sheets, not pre-approved, not anything. We just say we want to do this. We're just going to bring our sheet.
This is a character I've played in the old system, bringing it in
here and show us how it works. put my money where your mouth has been for however many months it's been now. You've been talking about this book, and everything is going to be backwards compatible. Keep buying our product because it's not going to be wiped out when they release the new book. So I'm telling you, right, clip this, put this out there. If you know Jeremy Crawford, go to his house and play this for him on your phone.
The gauntlet is thrown.
I will do this.
Jeremy Crawford is definitely hearing this and feeling very insecure right now.
For sure.
Those Hasbro executives as well. I don't.
They're very threatened. Yeah.
We better bank harder on Taco Bell and less on Hasbro to support the stream. But
so Baja, so Mountain Dew, and the Mexican national football team.
That moves us right to another class, right? Talking about the Warlock. Chuck, if you bring your level 2 Warlock to Jeremy's game, and I play one of the new Warlocks, one of the two of us is going to have a pact already, and the other one is fucking not. So,
the other one's going to have one of them's going to have a subclass, and the other one is going to have a pact boon.
Correct. Well, theoretically, maybe have a pact boon, right? You don't have to take it. So they've eliminated pact boons entirely from I shouldn't say they eliminated them. They took away the pact feature. And they specifically decided to add those to invocations, which you get earlier and apparently get more of now. So this poses a couple problems for me. And also a couple, like they did also say that they have trees where you have to take the invocation Pact of the Blade in order to take presumably things like Thirsting Blade and Life Drinker and things like that were already there.
1 second. Rook, can you tell me how this is bullshit?
Well, let me tell you how it's bullshit. But they've also said that every class gets their subclass at the same level now, right? They said that level 3, is that correct? How the fuck am I a Warlock and I didn't sign a goddamn contract until level 3? How did I become a level 1
What makes you a Warlock?
If I didn't
is this like an
make a pact?
Unpaid internship?
I was going to say, is this like an interview period?
Is this my trial period? Because I never bought the extra CDs from Columbia Records. I never did that, right? I took my trial period and ran. So again, and I think this applies to a number of classes where as much as it pains me to say this, because I don't think that was perfect either, a cleric of a certain god, a warlock that has a patron, those things need to be defined at level 1. They just do.
I have found it really awkward in a lot of games that start at level 1 to play through the first couple of levels and just have to kind of bullshit around like some of the like really core functions of your class that may be folded into your character. And just to have to kind of like avoid it coming up in gameplay for those first couple of levels because you technically don't have it. Like it's weird because it doesn't make sense for you to not to have it.
I mean, I think a lot of that is in, again, conversations with your DM, how you're going to work things you intend to be something. But there is also the possibility, and I've played in games before where it's like, oh, I'm going to be this subclass. And then things happen during level 1, level 2, and you're like, oh, it makes more sense to be this subclass based on interactions that I've had with the other characters and things that have happened during the adventure, and I will be that, and I'm going to be that subclass instead. I'll make that change. It makes for a better story. This character who's not locked in and defined necessarily by a subclass, but by who they are, works just as well or maybe even better with this based on that information. So I don't have as big a problem with that. I certainly don't have a big problem with doing an internship for the great old one, or whatever you have to do. And I think about it more in terms of like a drug dealer. Hey, here these spells, that's your taste. You can come back later when you see me. And then level 3, okay, free taste is over. Now you gotta give us a little something if you want more. Oh, you want more of that? Oh, I got more. That's how I see that sort of thing working. Potentially, but I mean, there's multiple ways to work it. We're storytellers. Let's come up with a way to explain that.
One of the positive things that I heard in the Warlock, what do you want to call interview, video clip, whatever you want to call that, was that they were attempting to integrate communication with your pact, with your leader, your guy, your god, whatever you signed a pact with. They're attempting to integrate interaction with him into play more, because theoretically that comes up very little in most games.
Depending on the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, to some extent that's cool, but it also feels like something that really should be on the player and the DM to kind of be bringing that in. And I was going to say, I kind of want to do like a little side rant about the thing I hate about warlocks is when people want to play a warlock mechanically, but don't want to play a warlock and just like ignore the existence of their patron, especially with celestial warlocks, because they're like, yeah, my patron's just like a nice god and they just want me to do nice things and that's fine, and like have no conflict with it. And I'm like, why the fuck are you playing a warlock? Like, it's all the conflicts. That's the best thing about it. Like, come on, your patron needs to want something from you.
The plot is
and something that you are like, it can't be something that is easy and not an issue for you to do, because otherwise why would they be giving you something in exchange for it? Like, people need to play warlocks like warlocks. Right after I said this stuff about non-traditional paladins, I don't care. It makes me mad.
Well, at the end of the day, every warlock sold their soul to something, right?
And to something for some reason.
They did that for a reason. Some of them may be acting against their patron now. Some of them may be acting in servitude. Some of them may be conflicted at times, whatever they did, but they all made that pact at some point and chose to do that. And so it should affect a game irregardless of whether they're actively trying to serve their patron's needs.
Yeah, I was going to say the second what Rook said and what Owen said in the chat of like, I do like the idea of mechanics that require the patron to be unignorable, which does agree with what you're saying about like, play a warlock. Which I fucking love being a warlock. I love making it messy. I love it. When I
DM, I put, which I don't DM a lot, but when I do, I have a note that says you cannot play a celestial warlock without prior approval, because I need to ask you some fucking questions.
I want to play.
Why a warlock? Why not a cleric? Why, when a deity can use clerics and paladins and shit, why do they want a warlock? What shady shit does this deity need you to do that their regulars can't do for them? Like, I have questions if you want to play a celestial warlock.
The celestial warlock is the CIA of the divine community.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I feel like you can play that in a really cool way, but I have only ever seen celestial warlocks played as like an unproblematic patron, basically, which is boring as hell.
I can't turn this into me and my fervor for my celestial warlock idea central, but I will message you.
Yes, please do. Please do.
I will message you for the
I think that statement from a DM, and again, I think the communication between player and DM needs to be open. It needs to happen. There needs to be more of that. Don't try and surprise your DM with stuff. Come together and talk about what you want to do. But I think that goes with that may be your favorite class with the warlock and the bad experiences you've had with celestial patrons. But I mean, I think that could be said about just about anything. Don't I'm bringing in, I want to play XYZ mechanically and, create this thing with kind of loose backstory for it. Well, maybe we need more of a reason why you're one level dip in Hexblade and, this and that. Just because
Are we
what?
on ads? Are we on ads right now?
Yeah, I just ran a 1 minute ad to buy us 30 more minutes. So
Okay.
So talk about everything important right now.
Really fast.
Let me tell you how I feel about Celestial Warlocks in 30 seconds or less, 22 seconds or less.
Oh my.
I almost got off on my other tangent about multi-classing, but we won't go there right now.
We can talk about that later. I mean, but it's got to have a point, right? I mean, you can't just.
Yeah, exactly.
I did have a point about Warlocks that I've almost forgotten.
Should we write it down for you?
Your community is back. You can say it right now.
Okay, Warlocks. I may have said this before. I don't know, but I'm of two minds on this. And I don't remember what I was going to say beyond that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know what the two are, but of two minds.
About Warlocks not getting their pact until third level.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm of two minds on this. On one level, it makes no fucking sense to not have a Warlock pact right from the get. On the other, it's also so hard mechanically from a communal group perspective to be like, some of you get your cool thing before other people get your cool thing.
That
So,
sucks.
like, there's a reason that a lot of people, when you're like, oh, we're going to do a one-shot, or, oh, we're going to do a mini campaign, or, oh, we're going to do a podcast or a stream, the answer is so often, what level do we start on? It's got to be either like third level or fourth level or fifth level or sixth level, because people are getting their cool shit at different times. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but I feel like there should be one.
Well, that said, I will say the ones that get early subclasses, they need some stuff a little earlier. Typically, your wizards and your warlocks versus your fighter or your martial classes that. Level 1, sure, I can go out there and I can swing on and do whatever, and all that stuff doesn't change. But the squishiness factor and the abilities of a wizard at level 1 or a warlock at level 1 are not they're not comparable. So you start at level 1. I've never played level 1, which you usually only play for a session or a session and a half, and felt like, oh, my warlock, because they got a pact and had that already, was so far ahead of everybody else. I felt like we were all going to die the second we started the session. So,
But to Violet's forthcoming rant, when you see those one level dips in things, it's typically cleric or warlock because of the front-loaded features of whatever that may be.
And also, to me, that sounds like just trying to address something that's broken rather than fix it. Like, if some classes are fundamentally weaker than others at low levels, and you're like, well, I guess we need to give them subclass sooner. Why not make them stronger? Like, why not give them, like, it's just a weird way to try to balance something when you're acknowledging that it's imbalanced. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. But that's why they're trying to move away, and they're giving them more goodies at level 1 now, and moving the subclasses to wherever. So I mean, I think that's what they were trying to do,
particularly with the feats that are in backgrounds and stuff now too, which feels like one of the things they said a lot was that they're, with this new player's handbook, trying to fold in things that a lot of people tend to house rule, and like first level feats is something a lot of people do. So I think that's what they're kind of going for with the background feats
and the restriction on origin feats, so you're not grabbing crossbow experts, so you're not grabbing sentinel, polearm master, all that stuff. That makes sense. Other stuff that they've been doing, like potions are officially a bonus action to drink now, right? Everybody does it.
It's like the most common house rule.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Wizards of the Coast. We've been doing that shit for 10 years
I
already.
know, that's the thing. Like, on the one hand, like,
shit.
like, okay, they're acknowledging like how people really play the game, but on the other hand, it's certainly not changing the way. It's like,
I mean, they're saying they were wrong.
Yeah,
That's an
that's true.
admission.
That's not what
that
they're
they were
saying.
wrong.
If you listen, Jeremy Crawford is clearly saying this is the new thing that we are putting into D&D. Yeah, bullshit. We did that 10 years ago, bruh.
Well, go ahead, Chuck, because I was going to go in a different direction.
I was going to say that is a thing with those videos. There's a lot of new things coming, and you will hear that phrase a lot. A lot of new, 90% of which is taking the stuff that was released with Tasha's and released in these latest source books and making them official content in the player's handbook. And there is a lot of double talk about that, but all of that will be forgiven when Jeremy Crawford comes on Hit Points Not Required, the charity stream, and runs a session showing how it's all going to integrate and how it all works really well.
Yeah. But yeah, I was actually going to say to that point, I feel like my and there's a lot of things in here that I would love to talk more about maybe next time. Druid stuff, Druid wild shape changes I would love to talk about, weapon mastery I would love to talk about, but in general, I feel like with this and with a lot of stuff D&D has been putting out in the last couple of years, it just doesn't feel like there's anything new. To me, it feels like it's always just a shuffling of old features. It's just like you can read like a new subclass or something and just say like, oh, okay, so it's like this ability from this feat plus this like battle master tactic. Like you can see like how it's like pulled from different places. It just feels like they're reshuffling the same abilities a lot and not really bringing anything new, which I find really disappointing.
Not necessarily an awful thing, because sometimes if you try to change too much stuff, listen to Owen in the chat. Strong recommendation for everyone to check out the DC-20 system.
Well, that's another thing we talked about a little bit too when we were talking about having this conversation, was at some point, also talking about some of the other systems that, especially newer systems that are coming out with, Black Flag and Tales of the Valiant and DC-20 and like different things that are coming out as sort of D&D alternatives to some extent. For sure. And I think that's part of what I'm thinking about when I'm saying I'm a little disappointed not to see them trying to do something new. Because certainly there are new interesting things that can be done and that other people are doing.
I mean, weapon mastery is definitely a big thing that is new to the game and not something that was reshuffled from
a lot of those abilities look a lot like battle master stuff, to be honest, but
and they're giving it to so many people. They were originally not supposed to have, the rogue was not supposed to have it, and it looks like they're giving it to anybody that can use it. But that said, the last thing that I had on my mind as I was going through that really struck me while I was watching the videos was how much they emphasize the art in these books. The new art, we've got new art for this. And it seemed like they would go into like 40-minute things about how wonderful all of the art is depicting. Every spell is shown in art, everything. And I'm wondering, I haven't seen all of it yet. Obviously, we don't have copies of the book or anything like that. But is it maybe too much to show people someone else's interpretation of what everything looks like is it a dampening on creativity at all from a standpoint of, if we're listening to a song and you hear the lyrics the wrong way and you say that lyric, I hear that every time that the song comes on. Now that you've said it, I hear it. Now that you've shown this art and this is the way the spell looks, this is the way this looks and that looks, does that put something in people's minds, and is that going to be a detriment to creativity?
I mean, I think that's a really valid point and is definitely possibly true. I think it can also be just like an inspiration jumping off point, but it kind of depends on the person. But yeah, I mean, I think that's valid. Honestly, I would not necessarily want to see a lot of, especially spells and that sort of thing, because that's such a big place where people flavor their characters in their own unique ways in the way that they spell cast. So I would not want to see a ton of art like that. But at the same time, I think especially with like, classes and things like that, sometimes, especially if the art shows things, ways to play that you might not have thought of, it can be sort of an inspiration for different ways of approaching a character. But it all depends on what they do with it.
Yeah, I think flavoring spellcasting is not always everyone's strong suit. It might be like, oh, I could do that? Sick.
Yeah, this looks cool. That's fine, right? But on the other hand, my
It's
Eldritch Blast will never look the same from character to character ever,
And that's
because
okay.
it's part of my favorite part of playing a spellcaster is saying this is how this looks.
Mhm.
Now,
Honestly,
do I
I
want to say
feel
that
like-
over and over again every game? No.
I do just feel like people who are invested in and know how to and feel confident in flavoring how their spells look are going to be able to do that regardless of like, oh, there was art that said it's this way. So like, that's not going to stop people from flavoring their spells, but it might start people flavoring their spells. I think I think it's really fucking cool. It might be for capitalism, so people buy the physical books, like Owen mentioned. But
it's 100% for
also,
capitalism. Don't get me wrong. I'm just wondering. Yeah, I'm just wondering the impact on creativity. That's what this whole conversation is about. Not should we have this ability, should we not have this ability? How is that going to impact people's creativity and ability to role play?
And honestly, I think if I see some cool ass art, like even if I don't want to do it that way, it's gonna look cool, and I'll be like, oh man, what are the other ways that I can make this look cool? Like,
I think so.
Can we visualize
Owen's point in the chat about it being particularly helpful for new players to kind of conceptualize, like, what does it look like to cast a spell and that sort of thing, and how could you describe? I think that's very true, and I think for better or for worse, because you can definitely argue both. That we've brought that up earlier, and coming back to it again, I think that's a lot of what they're doing with this book is about, making it approachable to new players. And like, in a way, like, that's fine, but there are also definitely drawbacks to taking that approach. And how much are you boxing in both new and old players when you do that? But I don't know. But that's definitely something they had in mind in creating this book, like front to back, like every part of it.
We are either about to get a 3-minute ad or we're about to sign off in the next 1 minute or so. So you guys tell me.
I think at that point, we have had a lovely time talking to all of you, and I have enjoyed this quarter of a beverage flavored after a certain goblin head that I managed to drink down. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will be back again in 2 weeks with a little bit more nonsense and a little bit more analysis on 2024 Player's Handbook and playability. And in the meantime, remember, hit points are not required to enjoy a somewhat tasty beverage.
But they might be for drinking a buzzball. Don't do this at home. Please don't. It's not good.